Well, the Final Four is set for the Philadelphia 76ers, and those four are going to be the last four of the season as they embark on these final four games to road to home and end their disappointing season next Sunday. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Pregame Show, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365, along with Derek Bodner and Bree. I'm Devon Givens. Kyle will be here shortly, and we have all of you in the chat ready to go for this one as the Philadelphia 76ers once again get ready to wind down the disappointing season. We'll give you our Bet365 picks a little bit later. The starters, what will that look like? Because we have some injuries that are some guys that are out today where they are really finally diving into it head first into this one, as they call it a season for your Philadelphia 76ers. So does Miami, as they're messing up things a little bit, making us sweat just a little bit tonight as they take on and host the Philadelphia 76ers. Tonight, the Heat. Wednesday at Washington. Those will be the last two road games for the Philadelphia 76ers, two at home, and that's Atlanta on Friday, home for the Chicago Bulls on Sunday, and that's a wrap for your disappointing, once again, 24-25 campaign. But Derek, it's the Sixers Final Four, man. Sixers Final Four that seems like it's been going on forever.
Yes. No, it is. Look, there's almost something freeing about the fact that they are currently 2 games behind New Orleans and 2 games in front of Brooklyn. With 4 games left, catching any one of them is very unlikely. And there's something a little bit freeing to that because at the very least, no matter what happens here tonight, you're not really nervous about it. You're not sitting on pins and needles hoping they pick up their 12th loss in a row, which the fact that we are sitting here and discussing the season like that, it is just an absolute colossal failure. It is really disappointing, but like I said, it is freeing because at this point, I feel pretty confident that they're locked in with that 5th worst record. Gives them about a 64% chance of keeping that pick, 10.5% chance of getting Cooper Flag. There's not a whole lot that's going to change that equation. And you're right, Miami has a lengthy injury report as well for this game. Mm-hmm. Doesn't really matter because if they win this game, it's probably not. They're probably about one more away. Like if they can lose 1 or 2 more, 2 more games, they would be locked in. But you're not completely out of the woods, but you're not, like I said, on pins and needles like you otherwise might have been.
And look, the Nets and the Pelicans do play tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that you can look at and say, okay, some way, somehow. Because some will say, Derek, why do you say it so easily that you can't catch either one of them? The Pelicans and the Nets do play tomorrow. If the Sixers do sneak in a win, because we did
and the Sixers do play the Wizards.
Yeah,
so
we did say they're probably going to sneak in one more.
That's fair. I'm not saying don't worry about tonight's game. I'm just saying it doesn't feel quite as life or death as maybe it felt a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but all right, so how do you feel, though, sitting here, 4 games left? As you said, unbelievable that we're sitting here talking in the manner of which that we are with the Philadelphia 76ers. We've said it multiple times because it's just really unbelievable that this is the situation that they are currently in. So when you do look at it and you see that this is the Final Four, having endured everything that we have with this basketball team, when we get to this number that we are at now, we will reflect next week when the season is officially over, but how does it make you feel in general?
It's really wild that we have to do a post-mortem when it feels like we've been doing a pre-mortem for like the last 3 months.
Yeah.
No, it really just drives home the fact that they better get this draft pick, and there better be a reward for what we all had to sit through and what you all in the chat had to sit through. I don't even want to think of a world where they come out and they don't have a draft pick after May 12th. This is going to be one of the more, we've gone through a lot of interesting off seasons with this club. Everything from GMs having burner accounts, talking about slapping their star player and getting fired as a result. They've gone and they've tried to done big free agency pitches. They've gone and they've had multiple players request and demand a trade. They've gone through almost every different way of reconfiguring this team that you can imagine over the decade of the Joel Embiid era. This is a new one where you come in and you have so much, not only uncertainty, but so much pessimism. I have never covered an offseason where there is so much pessimism surrounding the team that it is like, and truthfully, a lot of people are going to come and they're like, well, you got to move this guy, you got to move that guy. I think there's a lot of uncertainty on the direction that you go too, because some of these trade values are so low that the path out of the, spot that they are in is maybe less obvious than it's ever been. It is just an absolute disaster in every which way.
It has been. So as we welcome in our fourth member here with us, Kyle Neubeck joining us in the studio as we have our pregame show.
The Sixers quit on the season, so I was sitting in my house like, maybe I have too.
You were fine.
Nah, my neighborhood was a mess for some reason. There was a tree down, so traffic was blocked, and that took me a while to just like get out of a parking spot. And then I come down the street, I'm passing the one grocery store, and there are 2 buses and a fire truck who can't figure out who's going to go forward and who's going to go backward. So that caused another piece of congestion, and here I am. How are we doing, fellas?
Well, it's good to have you in here, man. How's we doing? We got 4 games left, and we were just kind of discussing the 4, where we are with the Heat and Wizards on the road. Hawks, Bulls,
must lose, baby. Must lose.
Must lose. No Justin Edwards, just to let people know, no Justin Edwards because of that hip issue that he was dealing with on Saturday. He is out for tonight. Yabusele with personal reasons. He's also out tonight. But for the Miami Heat, no Bam Adebayo and no Andrew Wiggins for the Miami Heat. That said, Tyler Herro is playing. You still have Alec Burks and Davion Mitchell and so many other pros, Khalil Ware, that are there. That the Miami Heat should handle their business. They've lost their last 2 games, I believe, after getting themselves righted. And they still are in play-in contention for seeding. So depending on what they want to do, I imagine they would like to host a game instead of not having to be on the road for one. You still have to come out there and try to win this one. But focusing on the 4 games that we are at, again, talking about it in the past, and we are going to do an off-season thing next week. Just where we are, Final 4 with this basketball team.
Sunday, last game of season. That is our true liberation day.
It truly is. It truly is.
Start over there.
It truly is.
I want to echo something that Derek is saying. It is a very unique end of season and going into the off season situation that they're in, right? I'm sure you guys all deal with this in your own lives, but when I see friends, family, they're just people I haven't seen in a little while, first thing I get asked, other than like, how are you? How have you been doing? And how's your dog Louie? All that is, what the hell's up with the Sixers, right? And it's like, I need a dissertation on exactly how this went wrong and blah, blah, blah. But then there's also the next step of like, how did they put themselves in a situation where this is so up in the air where they could lose this pick while also having a disaster season? And the simple answer is, when that trade was made, what was it, 4 years ago, 5 years ago at this point? I think it was fall 2020, so a little over 4 years at this point. When that trade was made, there was no expectation that a team with Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, flexibility, picks, whatever at their disposal was going to be boxed into a corner where their only path out of it was all of us sitting here, a week left in the season, saying, you got to lose every single one of these games, right? And I'm paying far too much attention to Brooklyn Nets injury reports, to what the Pelicans are doing on a Sunday night against the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, what they have reduced us to is just despicable. And I feel more for the fans, because at least we're sitting here, we can commiserate together, we do a show together, we have some fun, we do it as a job, and like can set it aside a little bit. When you're paying hard-earned money to watch the slop that has been put on the floor, it's brutal.
By the way, 2 games tonight. The Sixers at 7:30 and starting right now. Basically, Detroit is hosting Sacramento. Why are there any games being played tonight with the national championship game
especially
going on?
These games? It wasn't even like, hey, let's give you a nice appetizer for the national championship game. It's let's give you garbage.
Why are they playing these games? No, but just sitting here. This off season is going to be a huge one. But you're right, man. Just looking back at that one, where the future looked really, really good. Having those 2 guys as the focal points, the building blocks, and a bunch of leeway there. You get lucky with a top 10 pick in 2018, and you all that type of stuff of how you wanted to go.
You hit on Maxey right after you make this trade. It was all kind of one after the other, right? I don't remember the exact timing of the Horford trade that night of like when it took place, but it was all in pretty quick succession. Like, you got rid of Al Horford's contract, you draft Tyrese Maxey, You trade Josh Richardson, you get Seth Curry in, you have the building blocks in place, like all these things. At the time, it was like, man, limitless upside for these guys. And boy, over 4+ years, it has just all come crashing down to the point that we're talking in the Discord with people about would they entertain trading Maxey, depending on the scenario. And there are plenty of different hypotheticals we'll discuss this summer. But yeah, it tells you what a basically sideshow the actual basketball is right now, right? Like we're putting some meaning into these games when guys like Justin Edwards are available, or we're looking at Yabu's contract situation, or Grimes is on a big run and blah, blah, blah. But even still, it's like those guys are still at the end of the day, like the complementary guys. These are not the foundational building block guys who are going to drive the franchise players. So when we're previewing Sixers Heat, it just becomes existential dread, the podcast.
It is, man, because I'm just thinking.
A lot of those these days, by the way.
Oh, yes. I'm just thinking that as you're saying that, man, who's going to start tonight? We're going to get the 53rd different starting lineup for this basketball team potentially because Bagley or Wheeler might start or Castleton.
What a world.
I remember at one point in December, I tweeted like, man, this team might have more starting lineups in like I forget which process team, but the process team that had the most.
Yeah.
That was like 35 or 36 starting lineups. They blew through that a long time ago.
And broken the NBA record while at it as they do that.
The only record this sorry-ass team is breaking this year.
Breaking that record with this one. But no, man, just as you said, it's tough. Look, 4 games left. Keep saying it, not to hammer it into anybody's head, but we should not be ending the season this week. It should not be ending this week.
It should have ended 2 months ago.
Well, that part too. That part too. But we're so accustomed to the basketball season extending into end of April, early May, hoping that it extends to late May because of the Eastern Conference Finals and then thinking about the NBA Finals. But here we are, man, where it's a meaningless game but a meaningful one in terms of keeping the top 5 worst record in the league, or potentially getting some help from New Orleans because they play Brooklyn tomorrow, and maybe you can jump up into that 4th spot and all that. But once again, there's no reason whatsoever we should be sitting here with 4 games left not talking about locking in the 4th or the 3rd or the 2nd seed in the top part of the Eastern Conference instead of the bottom 5 of the NBA, because you need to keep a draft pick for this basketball team because the season has been so disastrous. It's just unbelievable that we are actually here and later probably talking about the 53rd different starting lineup with guys that will not be on the roster next season for this basketball team. So unbelievable stuff, just unbelievable stuff. But also want to get to the national title game a little bit to talk to you guys about that because Kyle, we both had Florida, but we also had them facing Duke.
Yeah. We did.
Yeah, right?
Oh, we were almost.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
We're almost all on the money on the title game, at least the matchup. But Houston with the absolutely furious
33
comeback
seconds
at the end there.
Yeah, 33 seconds, scoring what? Bree, Rich, and I, we walked out of here. They were down like 8, I believe. Yeah. They could never get past 8. And we were like, all right, we're out of here.
Yeah.
Get home, open up the phone, and the first tweet I see is Cooper Flagg is walking off dejected. And I'm like, wait a minute. Go back and check this out. What was it? 9 points in 33 seconds?
It was bad is what it was. And it took a lot of things in both directions. Like, I feel like I have centered what I have talked about, discussed, tweeted, whatever, around Duke, because Duke did a lot to unravel themselves, right? Their guard play was horrible.
Tyrese Proctor, you hurt yourself, my man.
Boy, did he.
Right.
Their guard play was terrible the whole game. And I think, more relevant for Sixers fans is that Malawak had a dreadful game. And frankly, they played a lot better as they played small and switchable and he was off the floor. And we won't get into the particulars of it, but he had a lot going on. People from South Sudan in America had a lot going on that day. So I have no idea if that played any impact on the game. But so Malawak showed a lot of flaws that we're going to have to evaluate as part of his larger case of like, okay, how is this guy as a prospect? How does he fit into the league? And then you have the officiating impact on it as well, where a few major pivot points, right? So the flag call was ridiculous in the final. That's a ridiculous call. But the more honestly impactful call was the Gillis call on the flagrant. That single call swung the whole game.
That one I did not see.
That was he's swinging his arm back, and they called it a flagrant. So he got 2 shots.
Right. Okay.
Hit the shots, get the ball, hit a 3, and it turns into a 5-point. I guess it would have been. I think they made a shot, got the free throws, so it ended up being like probably a 7 or 8 point, 6 point possession, which is just insane. So a lot of things had to happen. There will be people who focus on, well, Cooper Flagg didn't hit the shot at the end. Meanwhile, he had an incredible
27
game,
or whatever he had. He
had a decent look too. Like left to right, that was lined up. He just came up short.
He had the matchup he wanted and everything. He just just short armed it. But look, he got the good look. He just missed it, and that happens even with great players. And the thing was, not ignoring the South Sudan part, with the Sudanese and all, was we were sitting here and Rich is telling us what's happening. I think it was halftime. And I'm like, how does he, looking at Bree, and I said, how does he have 0 rebounds right now? And then he ended up, the game could be, of course, everything going on in his head. He ended up with 0 rebounds in that game, played 20 plus minutes. And that was that one's not a good look.
And I think for me, Derek, I don't know if you watched the whole game or parts of it, or because you were at the Sixers game, unfortunately, on Saturday night. But my takeaway was it wasn't even just the rebounding. It's just he got moved all over the floor by those guys. And that's a credit to Houston, right? They are a tough, physical basketball team, and they moved Duke whenever they wanted to, it seemed like, for periods of that game. But for a guy who, like, one of your defining features is size, athleticism, maybe not strength, right? He's a young kid and he's learning how to play the game. Like, there are things that can be worked on, but the fact that he just basically got bullied out of that game was eye-opening for me.
No, at one point in the post game, Devon asked me, he's like, "Hey, what did Ant do after he made the big shot?" I'm like, "I got to be honest, I have no idea. I was looking down at my tablet watching the game."
I did later see it. Somebody posted. Actually, it was Freddie Mitchell. Shout out Freddie. Okay. He posted a video. He was sitting courtside, and I saw the whole thing from there. Just
because we've mentioned it briefly, the U.S. is reportedly revoking visas for everyone from South Sudan, which is where Malawach is from, just to kind of fill that in. So that's why there might have been stuff going on that was on his mind. I think that got announced a couple hours before the game.
Yeah, it was at like 5:30. Game took place like 4 hours later or something like that.
And he is an interesting case where he's a really good offensive rebounder, and he's been pretty mediocre as a defensive rebounder throughout the year. Part of that, I think, is that since he is capable of switching and defending more on the perimeter, he's asked to, because of that he's out of position for rebounds a little more, but also he's just, I think that game was the first time, not the first time, but one of the times this season that was a real prominent example of, he's only been playing basketball for like 5 years. He's pretty new in this basketball journey. He's pretty physically underdeveloped as well, and he's still trying to learn a lot of things on the fly, and he just really looked like that the other night.
Yeah. Just, again, I didn't see a lot of it. I did go back and watch some more, but just not all of it. And because I felt like what was really important was that final stretch of how they allowed themselves to be back in that spot. So just tough for him in general with everything going on. But if we're basketball evaluating, just looking at the numbers, it was very puzzling to see him with a 0 in the rebounding category. When we talk about him a lot he can do a lot of the other stuff. The offense has to catch up, but he blocks shots. He makes things happen on the defensive end. He rebounds, the offensive rebounds, the defensive rebounds. And he had 0, and that was a tough.
No,
one.
it was one of the worst games he's played all year.
Yeah,
probably the worst.
And real fast, Kyle, just your thoughts on why you felt like that was not call it at that moment, or it wasn't a foul?
I don't think that's a foul, and I don't think it's a foul, but I also, the way games are officiated, and if you don't think it should be this way, that's fine. The way basketball and every other sport is officiated is, once you get into winning time, so let's say final 5 minutes, but especially final 2 minutes, right? Close game, single possession at that point. You don't give the other team the chance to take the lead and win the game on it's like a marginal contact play, right? I think it's also different where it's not a foul that really impacts the game or the result in any way until you call it, right? If Duke gets back plays defense, somebody drives, and a guy gets hit on the arm, but it's like a graze, I'm a lot more inclined to say you fouled him. But when it's a play that's 70 feet from the basket and it's just, I hate those foul calls as a general rule. I don't think it went over the line of calling over the back on that play. And I just, seeing it come down to that sequence in that play sucks. Now, again, on the other side of it, Duke put themselves in a position where it's why I generally I don't ever ascribe to like the refs decided the game, because if you put yourself in a spot where it's a one possession game, especially when you've been up double digits, they were up, 14 points at one point, fairly deep into the game. Mm-hmm. To give up that lead and have it be down to 1 point, you own all of that. I hate a game of that caliber being decided on a call like that.
Yeah, so what I will agree with you on is Houston still got the basketball on the tip. So even though he reached over him and did everything he did, the ball was loose and Houston picked it up. The problem with that is when we even watch the games together, or you guys watching at the arena, and we say, man, that whistle was late. You can't wait for whoever is going to pick up the possession if the call is if it's an infraction. You got to call it. So for me,
but they do that all the time,
and see,
especially on shots too.
No,
like they will wait to watch guys.
We
miss.
sit there and be like, "Wait a minute, that was late." You call that in the moment.
I actually don't complain about late whistles. I actually don't have a problem
when
with
it's super late. I complain about them. So my thing was why it was a foul was the Houston rebounder did everything he did, positioning himself, squatting, everything to box out like we always talk about. Why are you not boxing out? He boxed out. And when he boxed out, flag had reached over. You got to resist of not doing that and putting yourself in that position. You're already thinking too much because of, as you said, they let them back in the game when they shouldn't. So that was just a bad opportunity to make a mistake like that. And that's why I thought it was a foul because of what it was. I do also agree with you. Spot of the game, official, maybe just let him go. But he has to, as the player, resist himself from reaching over and committing an opportunity that could be 50-50 on a play like that, where that, in my opinion, was a foul where you can't reach over a player like that and preventing him from doing his job of boxing out at that spot. So,
and I will say, like, their defense was just absolutely absurd. Like, a lot of people will focus on Duke and the mistakes that they made and their guards coming up short. A big part of that, Houston had the best defense in the entire country all season long, and they just absolutely dominated them. I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. And then, like I said, it's real easy, especially because we are a show that's focused on the NBA. And by contrast, we focus on the draft prospects, and that was all Duke. It's easy to focus on what that team didn't do, but Houston absolutely deserved
what changed, though? I mean, like you said, they were up 14. I saw they were up 12.
I do think some of it is youth, right? Like a lot of those guys that are out there, and like Flag, Knipple, Malawak, like those are
young
true
guys.
Freshmen, guys who had, and frankly, they were unchallenged for basically the final 3 months of the year. And there were a lot of people who, people will say like, oh, well, they just haven't been tested, right? Like they haven't been in these close games. You don't know how they'll respond. And like, there's a little bit of oversimplification there, but clearly that was something that happened, right? We talk about it with young teams in the NBA all the time. Guys get to the playoffs for the first time. They're really talented. Maybe they won 50 games in an ideal scenario. And it's like, well, why can't this team go to the conference finals? Why can't this team go to the finals? And then they lose one tough game and the series just unravels. So this is a one-game single elimination tournament version of it. But I think a lot of it just comes down to that, right? And frankly, I don't think John Shire did a good job of managing that game. And like the Malawak decision is part of that, right? Because you had the small ball working. You could see that this kid, for whatever reason he struggled, is struggling in a big way, can't rebound, isn't helping you on either end of the floor, really. You have to have the confidence to say, I'm just not playing them. I'm going to play what's working. I'm going to roll with these guys. Cooper Flag's playing well. You got to get Knipple the ball some more. I think he only shot the ball like twice in the second half after having a big first half. Like there was low-hanging fruit there for them to take, and they didn't take it. But again, credit to Houston for, as Derek said, number one defense in the country. They imposed their style on them, and their whole thing in practice, in games, whatever it is just playing hard and playing to the final whistle and wearing you down. And I do think that in the end, mentally and physically, Duke just had nothing left.
And to Kyle's point, I think Houston's entire starting five is either a junior or a senior. I think maybe Tugler might be a sophomore, but outside of that, everyone is very experienced.
All right, with that, Houston is technically the home team, both number ones tonight. Florida taking on Houston, and we'll talk about Walter Clayton in our prospect watch like we did on Saturday. He has definitely boosted his stock with his tournament run. Who you guys got tonight?
I'm sticking with my initial pick. I can't go away from the bracketology or whatever.
I had Florida losing to Duke, but I will pick Florida as well.
Same, yeah. Houston defense. We just talked about it.
We did.
Houston defense. Well, we'll see. I'm going Florida as well. Let's get to the starters tonight for the Sixers and the Miami Heat.
Oh yeah, that game.
Yeah. 53rd starting lineup because Marcus Bagley gets the start in the front court next to Lonnie Walker and Adembona, along with the backcourt that we've seen quite a bit over these last couple of weeks. Quentin Grimes and Jared Butler. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Jared Butler and Quentin Grimes, the usual starting backcourt for the Philadelphia 76ers. When are we going to see Jeff Doughton? What does he have? 2 games left?
He's got 2, yeah.
2? All right.
You think he wants to close it out at home?
We're going to see him soon. Jeff Doughton out there.
Curtain call for Jeff Doughton at the Wells Fargo Center.
Give him the tribute video.
Throw his jersey
On the
into
way
the crowd, walk down the tunnel.
He can be the 5th one
Fan
announced.
Appreciation Day. Yeah, absolutely.
When he ruins their chance to tie the Pelicans in the standings with a game-winning performance.
Going for 30 in that one. So, hey, 53rd different starting lineup. It's going to be tough for any NBA team going forward to try to surpass that one and break that record. But this is the starting lineup for the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. So who's available? I mean, you got Reese might be available. Maybe. Yeah.
I haven't been in the portal quite yet, or since I got into the studio, so it wouldn't be a bad time to check.
No. I'll just look at the roster here and just let you guys know what's available tonight.
So Philadelphia basketball has 2 unassailable records. Wilt's 100-point game. That's why I said Philadelphia basketball, not Sixers. And then 53 starting
53.
lineups.
There you go. So Colin Castleton should be the backup to Bona. That's 1. Ricky is available. That's 2.
Which Ricky, by the way, get 2 minutes the other night?
Yeah. Hood Shafino, that's 3.
You can't crack this lineup, buddy. Oof, I'd be worried about that option next year.
Yeah, man. And maybe Alex Reese for tonight. Maybe.
By the way, maybe this is a topic for another day. I feel like Kelly Oubre has now fallen into the same wormhole Kyle Lowry did for most of this year, where nobody even checks on. It's like, oh, he's just hurt.
Speaking of Kyle
He's
Lowry,
had a knee sprain that's knocked him out for like a month.
Kyle's available tonight.
He is available.
Yeah, that's
tonight.
right. So that's 9 or 8 or not, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
I cannot
The
wait to
roster's
see
fun.
the Kyle Lowry, Jared Butler,
Jalen Hood Scafino,
Lonnie Walker, Jalen Hood Scafino, Alex Reese lineup at some point tonight. It will be cinema.
Yes, it will be. Let's get to the Bet365 pregame pick segment brought to you by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. We just went with some who's winning the game. Florida winning tonight.
Wow, a state of Florida.
And
parlay.
Miami, I've adjusted the number because when I saw it, when we were putting this together and I had to send this to Breed, the spread was like 12. And I was like, I don't know if I trust the Sixers.
Save my other comments on Florida things you could put into this parlay.
Very true. So I adjusted it to the 5.5 spread. Florida just to win, and also Miami to win by 5.5. That is boosted at plus 148. If you also want to do some baseball, you have a 30% profit boost on your 3-leg parlay at Bet365. So make sure download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, that'll do it for us. Sixers on an 11-game losing streak.
Let's make it 12, boys.
4 games left. Can they make it 12?
Finish the job.
Made for this. Absolutely they are. All right, we'll be back after the game. We hope to see you. We know the NCAA championship game will be ongoing. We'll be monitoring it in real time while we're doing the show. We won't ignore it.
What time does that start? Like 9?
8:50. So, by the time they do the
They
introductions.
always started at a weird time.
Because the introductions are going to take 10 minutes and all that stuff. So then it'll be 9 o'clock at tip-off, I think. Something like that.
Yeah, no reason that they could have an accurate start time ever in any American sport for a single reason.
So
how's European soccer work? They start like on time?
You know, this is my personal vendetta that I will be on until the rest of time.
So we'll be back after the game to talk about
God.
the Sixers Heat and checking in on the national championship game. Enjoy the games, everybody. For Bree, Kyle, Derek, I'm Devon. We'll be back after the game on the PHLY Sixers postgame show presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.